We always like to talk about how shows from our own childhood were so much better than the stuff that's airing today. And I'll be the first to say that is so not true. Because we all had stuff we remember disliking even as kids, and then there's stuff that did absolutely nothing for us. It is easier to talk about something that you either really love or really hate. I wanted to challenge myself and talk about a show that did absolutely nothing for me, and that's The Weekenders. I didn't know anybody who hated this show or loved it or had really strong feelings towards it. This is one that I just had no interest in whatsoever. And I remember the theme song really well. I only remembered one of the characters, and that's Tish, who's the resident smart girl of the group. And the basic premise is four friends enjoying their weekend. It's not a bad idea, and it's not a bad show by any means. It's just one that does absolutely nothing for me personally. And this is also not a slam against the creator or any of the creative team, because animation is hard work. So I'm only talking about the story, the results, the artwork itself. And the best way I can describe it is it feels a lot more like it's about the messages than the characters. I'm not interested in the characters at all. It's dated. When I look at it, and I did watch an episode prior to filming this video, and I know one episode is not enough to get the whole sense of the show, but the dynamic of the friends doesn't feel really energized. The show itself feels very, very tame. I like things that are a little edgier. It doesn't have a ton of energy to it. The writing itself is not bad, but it often feels like it's more about the messages and the lessons it wants to teach rather than being entertainment. And it's not particularly wacky, it's not particularly edgy, it's not particularly dark, and it doesn't have to be a good show. It doesn't have to be that to even appeal to me. But it feels bland. Even looking at it, the animation feels very old and not in a fun vintage way. It feels very tame, very safe, and the designs, it doesn't feel like it's fun vintage. When I look at it, it feels dated to me. And it just feels, again, harder to describe, but it's bland, it's safe, it doesn't really do much. It does have good messages. The lessons it wants to teach are legitimately good lessons, and they do it in an interesting way. But I'm not interested enough in the characters to want to watch them learn the lessons, and like I said, it feels like it's much more about lessons and teaching good values than it is about telling interesting stories with good characters. And again, by itself, it's not a bad thing, but I want to be more invested in the characters and what they're going through, and they feel very tropey to me. You know, you got the tomboy, you got sarcastic kid, you got your token black kid, you got your token smart kid. And again, cliches by themselves, not bad, just putting different spins on it. And this feels honestly very typical of slice of life shows. I've also seen a lot of stuff that's like this, and I've seen a lot of ways this kind of story has been done in ways that appeal to me more, in ways that are more interesting, that are more energetic. It's, again, harmless, but I would have liked to see more variety in the characters. I would have liked to see more of a friendship dynamic at play, and because they're a group, that's great, but I think I like to see more individual personalities come out and how they bounce off each other, what's one's relationship to the other, and they all feel like a really similar kind of person that's generally nice. There's some variety, but I tend to like to see more fleshed out individual characters working off each other in different ways. characters that have different relationships with each other. They can work as a group, they can work individually. And it's not enough to hold my attention. I could get through it okay, but at the same time, I thought, okay, I am past this. There are some kids shows that are more meant for just kids, and there's nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with adults enjoying that, but then there's sometimes you watch something and it's like, okay, this isn't bad, I see what it is, and as a professional, I could probably work with that, but as a fan, I'd want something different. Interesting to talk about, interesting to think about. I think I would have liked it more if it felt like there was more going on with the characters and more going on with them individually. And I know they have individual episodes where they all learn a different lesson, but it still feels like it's more about the lessons than it is about characters living their lives. And even the friendship, and again, they like each other, and they do feel like they are supposed to be very good friends, and from what I've seen, it seems pretty great. They're not backstabbing each other, but they'll get jealous, they'll get annoyed. They won't like some of the things that another one does, but it still feels like there's something that doesn't quite feel natural about the group dynamic. At least from what I've seen, it still feels more educational than entertainment. So, yeah, I would say that to quickly sum it up, it's dated and not in a fun, interesting, vintage kind of a way, like something like Recess or Angela Anaconda. It feels more about the lessons than it does the good characters, and I like to see more fleshed out characters working off each other more. The lessons they present are not bad, though, and they do tell them in interesting ways. And it's just a little too safe. Could have used more energy. But there are some good lines in there. Are there any shows that do nothing for you? Why? Why not? Is anyone remember The Weekenders? Does anyone actually remember The Weekenders? I'd be curious. Because in my experience, people liked it fine, but I can't think of anybody who really loved it or really hated it. It was just there. And I'd be curious to what other animation fans, nostalgic, new, have to say about that.